Hello and welcome to another one in the How to Play Fantasy Football series from the Fan Pub.
It's good to be back. And what are we talking about in fantasy football today?
We're talking about keeper
new
leagues.
players and new beginners. What is it that they want to talk about?
We're talking about keeper leagues and how it differs from normal fantasy football. We're updating the video. It gets a lot of views, but we think we can do a better job. And I think it was just audio only, so hopefully this one will give you some visual clues to how it all works. Right, let's start with the draft. 90% of them, I'd say, are snake drafts, aren't they? So we're just explaining how that works. So on the board behind me here, we've got 12-team draft. That's quite normal. And you get, normally it's a draft position allocated to you when you get in the draft, which is normally half an hour before you draft. If you know beforehand where you draft, you could do mock drafts and practice from that position. So what happens is you take it. Everyone takes it in turns to pick a player. So from team 1 to 12. So in order. So basically, you can print off a cheat sheet. We'll tell you about that later. And then on the way back, though, when it gets to 12, the second round goes back the other way. So it's what calls snake back. It snakes back. So if you're picking 12 and last, which is never good, but you obviously get the first pick in the next round. So you get a bit of the advantage back there. So, right. So basically, how a keeper league differs.
So normally there'll be rules. It'll depend on who operates your league, which commissioner you have will determine those rules. Often you can find leagues where you're allowed to keep maybe 2 players. Yeah. It can be 2, could be 4, can be 6. There's a lot of differences. And again, there are rules on where those keepers can be kept from. So it could be that it can only be players outside the top 10 rounds, so from around 11 onwards. Most leagues have 15 or 16 rounds of drafting. So it could be from that far deep down. So your knowledge of those deep sleepers and things like that become much more apparent and much more important. That's why we have the videos we have, and I'm sure Al will drop a link in this video about the kind of sleepers that could help you in those kind of keeper leagues.
A lot of the time it's just you keep 2 and they're the best 2 players for the upcoming season. So
and what normally happens in return to keeping those players? What do you lose in respect to, obviously, if you're keeping 2, what happens for the next
normally
2?
If you keep your best 2 players, your first 2 picks in the draft are then taken off you, but you've got 2 good players that you want to keep. Sometimes they let you just keep 1 and then you might get a second round pick. But also there's some other leagues that you look at the previous draft the year before and they'll let you keep the player from the round you drafted him last year. You just lose. Say if you drafted someone really good in round 10.
So James Conner maybe last year as an example.
Yeah, James Conner, say you drafted him round 10 last year. Well, now he's a first round player, but you only have to give up your 10th round. So it depends on the league rules. So it's never a stupid question to ask how that actually works for your commissioner. They should be answering that, and it's not a stupid question. Just check how it all works. So
obviously in the keeper leagues, what they're generally rewarding is you can easily keep your top couple of players, but equally it could be a league that rewards you for knowing knowledge deep down.
Yeah, so basically you can take so if that is a league that does that, we encourage you to sort of look at rookies really late on, because they can, come from nowhere to actually become very relevant the next year. So you've got to bear that in mind if that's the rules of your draft.
And some keeper leagues as well, because it gets a bit more complicated when you're talking keeper leagues. Again, you'll have to check with your commissioner and the scoring rules, but some only allow you to keep the player for 1 year extra. So that's another thing that often happens. So you get them for
every
an extra
rules,
year.
Every league's slightly different, but don't be afraid. Just look at the rules or ask if you're not sure.
And if you're not sure and you don't want to ask the commissioner or anybody in the league because you feel it's like a really silly question, just ask it on this video and we'll quite happily answer it for you.
If you want to give us the rules, we'll happily go through it with you. So they're a lot of fun. Basically it just allows you to retain a couple of players from the previous year's draft. Sometimes it's 3 or 4, can be more, can be up to 10. So you can keep your 10 best players. But
see, my view is fairly simple about these keeper leagues. Is you have what I call a redraft league. That's what this one technically is that we've got behind us. So it's every year we redraft the same players.
Yeah, and you can't keep anyone.
Then you have a dynasty where you keep everybody in your team. So that's the 2 extremes. And I guess keepers are kind of the halfway house. It's a bit of both.
In the middle.
In a bit of both. So that's a nice. You get a bit of something of both.
So another thing to think about, if you're in a keeper league and you've got some good players, but they're getting older, you've got to think about next year. Say if you're not going to make the playoffs, you can trade some of your better players, but look to the future for young players that you want to keep for next year who've made giant strides. I don't know. So think about getting younger and better. Maybe package a couple of players for someone younger and better that'll help the guy who's going for the league that year win, but gives you an edge going forward. So these are all the things you've got to think about, with Dynasty and Keeper League. So I say there's no stupid questions. It's a lot of fun, fantasy football. Get into it. We love it. We live and breathe it. So we're happy to answer any questions. If you've enjoyed the video and you found it helpful, please leave a like.
And if anything, you've got any question you have, this is the video to shoot it onto, and we'll.
I must mention about the cheat sheets that Sean talked about, or I talked about earlier. You can go to Fantasy Pros and you can look up either Dynasty League keepers or redraft keeper cheat sheets they're called, and you can actually get an expert consensus opinion on when them players go. This is so you won't look foolish. You can cross the players as they get drafted, and then you can just pick the highest one there or the one that suits your team the most, so you don't reach and get a player that's not worth the value. So they're very handy to go. You can go onto Fantasy Pros, look at the rankings. We're on there. Also, we've got sleeper videos that people you can target late in your drafts that might really help you out for the league going forward. So give you a bit of a good chance of winning. So there's lots of sleeper videos on there, depending on the type of league. And, please subscribe for more good content, and we'll see you next time.
See you on the next one.